Now, if you don't mind, could you explain who you are, your name, and what it is you do here at the university?
Okay, my name is Leif Deyrup, and I'm a professor of biology at the University of the Cumberlands. So most of my time during the semester is spent in teaching and of course with figuring out ways to teach as best as I can and helping students to learn those things. And then a little bit of my time, as well as a lot of extra time, or during the summer, I'll spend doing research. So looking at the way animals behave, or bugs interact, or collecting bugs, or things like that. I actually like bugs, I guess, if that wasn't obvious. So they make great tools for behavioral research, as well as being fascinating with the networks of pollinators and so on.
You discovered a new species of a bee. Could you, what was going on that day? Where were you? What were you doing? Who was with you?
Okay, actually, when we discovered it, it was actually like 10 years ago or so. It was a long time ago,
Okay.
or a while ago, long time now. We were collecting pollinators or flower visitors, insects that visit flowers, and we were collecting them to get an idea, because we tend to. Okay, so flowers are visited by different bugs, and there's so many bugs that visit different flowers and so on, and they all can't visit every flower, and every flower can't be pollinated by every bug. There's all these networks that go on, just like you have people that associate with other people, and you get social networks. You also have networks with insects, and so in our investigation of these networks of flower visitors, we catch bugs, like lots of different bugs on different flowers, and we record which they are. And so we caught bees. And one of the things you have to do, sorry, I'm going on a roll here, but so one of the things you have to do is figure out what bug it is. And there are so many insects in the world. There are more types of insects than there are any other type of organism. So there are more types of insects than there are mammals. There are more types of insects than there are types of plants. There are more types of insects than anything else. So it becomes extremely complex to be able to identify every group of insect, or every individual insect. So we have to identify them. And it is true that in an area you have more of one type than another. So you get familiar with some. But sometimes you have them where they're tough to identify. Maybe they're an individual that got attacked by a bird earlier, so they're a little beat up or something like that. But they're very difficult to identify sometimes. And so what happened about 10 years ago, we caught a series of bees that we couldn't identify. And that is hours and days and weeks and years of frustration as you're trying to figure out what this bug is. You're getting keys. A key is a way to identify insects or animals or anything in general. But you order keys and you look them up and you follow these out, and they're just not fitting into anything. And after a while, and with my case, obviously it took a while to figure out, I realized it wasn't just me. So sometimes, you're having trouble figuring something out. Sometimes it's you. And after a while, year and year and year, you figure out, well, maybe it isn't just you. And for some people, that comes really quickly. If they know the group extremely well, they find out, they look at it, they know it's not part of that group, and they know it's different. I knew it looked different, but I wasn't allowing myself to think that. And I just tried and tried to figure out what it was. And so it was very frustrating until finally I thought, maybe it's not just me. After years of looking at the groups, looking at what they look like, different things, it didn't fit anything. And so you realize it might be something new. And that was the fun part. But before that, it was very frustrating. And so it starts with not being able to figure out what it is. And as you get better and better at that group, you realize it's not any of them. So.
What are the characteristics and the behaviors that separate this bee from not normal, but more common species of bees? For example, the common honeybee, or what people call the bumblebee. What separates it from others?
Okay, so that's a great question, and links back to there's so many species of insects out there. But so bees are in a group called Hymenoptera, which are the bees and the wasps. People can often see they're similar. Bees are sort of the vegetarians of the group, but they're also more related to each other, and they tend to feed on pollen, whereas wasps and things tend to feed on other bugs. They tend to be predatory. So bees collect this pollen and so on. So there's whole groups of them, and in fact there's groups of social bees that are very social, like eusocial, such as honeybees, that are willing to give up their life just for a chance it helps the colony. I mean, they're the ones that their stinger sticks in when they sting, and it pulls out, and it basically is ripping out their internal organs to save, to give a little extra venom to that attacking individual. And they, of course, die, and so they're extremely social. And then there are other bees that are a little less social, but still social, and some bees that are solitary and live by themselves. Like they mate, they make a nest, and they bring pollen to provide for their offspring and so on. But they tend to work just as a couple or just as an individual if they're not with if the other mate gets eaten by a bird or something like that. So this group that I found was a solitary bee, and so they tend to nest alone. However, there's quite a bit about this bee that's not known. It's in a fairly restricted area, so it's not super widespread, and it has a certain type of flower that it likes, and it only tends to like that flower. So whereas a honeybee, to go back a little bit, a honeybee is very generalist. They like lots of different things. Bumblebees, another entirely different group of bees, they tend to like general things. Some bees, such as the small native bees, a lot of people have encountered sweat bees. These are like things that they're looking for extra salt, so when people are sweating or something, they'll land on their skin and try and drink the salt. They usually don't sting unless they get trapped in hair or in the skin or something like that when people are moving around. These are a lot like them. They're very non-aggressive, very passive. They won't sting unless you really grab them or something like that. And that's partly due to their solitary nature and partly due to their small size. I mean, I can catch many of these bees in my hand, and I can feel them sting, but it doesn't hurt like a honeybee or something like that. So they're solitary, they're generalists. These bees that I found are specialists. They tend to like a certain flower type only. And also they're almost cuter than honeybees. They're cute little, they're sort of like light yellow or white, really fuzzy with the sort of big bee eyes and nice defined stripy pattern, and smaller, of course, and not as aggressive. So that can be counted as cute, although most people think I'm crazy when I say a bee is cute. So I will stop there. All right.
The article that I read that your father was with you.
Yes.
So how did your family, specifically your father, or friends or people react when you were like, hey, I discovered a new species?
Okay, well that's another good question, especially because it links with my father. My father actually is in the business of identifying bugs. He does a lot more identification, where I do more experimental research. So I tend to like behaviors, how behaviors change over time and things like that. I'm very into experimental results. He's very, very good, and he does some experimental work, but he's very, very good at figuring out what organisms are what, especially bugs. So I've been involved with him in this research of capturing bugs for flowers for quite a while. That's been a big project of his, and I feel lucky to be able to work with him. I mean, it's great to be able to work with your dad on things and like this. So he's even more of an expert in this, or far more of an expert in this than I am, and so it actually been great. And he was the one that first told me to stop and not worry about it, because he couldn't figure it out either, and it was something new, because I am not, I'm tend to question myself more and more on that issue, whereas he's very, very good at it. So he basically said to stop that. And so I actually feel like I was part of his work on this. And I, of course, on this one, I did the description, so I had to put all the bugs together and all the ones in the same group or the same genus, Colletes, that were from the area, and had to look at their patterns of different characteristics and find out where this bee was completely different, and so that people could identify it well if they captured it in the future. And I did a lot of that work, but he's done quite a bit more, and so he sort of told me what to look for and how to do this. So he was an immense help, and yeah, he pretty much got first authorship on the paper because he's so good at that stuff, and he told me how to do all the description and everything like that. As far as other people, they were very excited because they were happy to hear that something nice happened, and although it is a long, frustrating process, once that paper comes out, it's very exciting. So, and I mean, yeah, it'd be exciting for me if it was a fungus gnat or something like that. Any bug would be very exciting for me. Obviously, I'm different as far as bugs are concerned, but to other people, it being a bee was especially nice because some people do find bees a lot nicer than fungus gnats. So.
Well, thank you so much for the interview and taking the time to talk to me.
Sure.
And congratulations once again.
Thank you.